The majestic River Severn has long held huge significance to both humans and wildlife. Sweeping through the country for 220 miles, it is the UK's longest river and boasts the highest tidal range in all of Europe.
Hosting a huge number of migratory species from as far as the Sahara and the Sargasso Sea, the Severn is an ecosystem of global wildlife significance, and that's indicated by its many conservation designations.
The estuarine mudflats offer feeding grounds for huge numbers of waders and wild birds. The upper reaches are equally important for endangered migratory fish species such as the European eel. The area's rich cultural and industrial history has shaped the very course of the river. In the 1800s, navigation weirs and locks were built to improve passage for large commercial vessels, developing trading links to the outside world. But for thousands of years before this, the River Severn was a highway for migrating wildlife and home to almost every species of British freshwater fish. The Severn and its tributaries are also the keeper of a fascinating secret. Amongst the 110 different fish species supported by the Severn is a long-forgotten fish, the Thwaite shad. The shad was once prolific in the Severn, returning from sea each spring in huge numbers to spawn in the upper reaches, bringing with them a pulse of nutrients.
But through the 1800s, weirs and locks being constructed with the industrialisation of the river created an impenetrable barrier for the fish as they moved upstream to their spawning grounds, and numbers were devastated. Nowadays, only small populations exist in little pockets, both in the Team and in the Severn. Today I'm on the banks of the Severn near Tewkesbury, where I'm learning about an ambitious project called Unlocking the Severn. The project aims to harness the potential of the Severn, both in natural and economic terms, enhancing the Severn and its reaches for future generations of local people, for communities, and of course for wildlife.
I'm here to meet Charles Crundwell, a scientist on the project, to hear about the groundbreaking work that's being carried out.
So Charles, can you tell me a little bit about the Unlocking the Severn project?
The Unlocking the Severn project is a 4-year project which is going to try and re-establish the iconic Thwaite shad up the River Severn by removing the barriers to them so they can actually swim upstream and get back to their historic spawning grounds. But it's also about unlocking the history of this fish to the River Severn and the communities that are around it. People don't really know about the river anymore and about the fish on it.
The shad is a significant species, isn't it, locally and historically?
It's very well documented how shad disappeared from this river, and you can literally date it to the year. The navigation weirs were built, and that literally in 2 years stopped the shad going any further than Worcester. And that is locked, it's still locked there, pretty much undisturbed to how it was when those weirs went up. And this project will allow those shad over the coming years to go all the way back up and produce more offspring, which ultimately will contribute to the favourable status of the special area of conservation of the Severn Estuary. So everything will go back into balance.
So in terms of gathering the information about the shad and the movements of the shad, how are you doing that?
Shad are poorly studied. So what we've done here is we've taken a new technique of acoustic tagging, actually putting a tag inside the fish. Now that in itself is not new, but doing it on the Thwaite shad is. So we made kind of an elaborate trap which basically allowed the fish to swim up the weir face, and then it's literally a case of you see one, you drop the door, it's trapped. And so what they do is they catch the fish, they anaesthetize it very, very gently. It's measured and all the weights and a little bit of genetics taken off it. And then a tiny, tiny incision is made in it with a tiny tag is just literally put in and one stitch suture to stitch it back up. Now, until we started tagging, we had no idea where they actually went. But this tagging has shown that within a month of leaving the river, one actually made it all the way across to Ireland, and that fish has made it all the way back just a few months later and is already back in the River Severn this year.
It's a wonderful thing, that, isn't it, that what you're doing is marrying sort of biology and history and culture and this very, very important local story.
It's very rare to have a project which brings that all together. Once people have forgotten about it, then that becomes the new norm. So most people don't think this river has this fish species anymore, and we want to change that. We want people to go, the Severn, oh, the shad. You know, they want people to use it in the same sentence, and I think that will be achieved.
Alongside the tagging programme, there are a number of citizen science and volunteer projects that have been running for a while now. Tim is the very first volunteer coordinator on the project, helping to make this happen.
So Tim, looking behind you there, you've got this very glamorous scene, you know, in the rain, with folks standing in the river there, but you're getting an army of volunteers, local people coming down to get into it, and you coordinate those volunteers.
So I recruit volunteers to come and visit the site throughout the migration season, and they help us estimate the population as it migrates upstream. So they're local people, some of whom use the site already. Not many of them had any background or interest in fish before that, but we've got them really enthusiastic about the shad. And yeah, they're just people who found out about the project, are interested in what we're doing here, and just wanted the opportunity to see the fish and sort of help out.
And what sort of work will they be doing as volunteers?
So it's quite simple at this site. They collect some environmental data. Today they'd probably make a note of the rain, and then they literally count fish coming through as they move past the white boards there, and that helps us estimate the population.
It's a lovely thing that, isn't it? Because I think you get a local community buy-in, and suddenly everyone's talking to everyone else about it, and yeah, it makes this species loom large again in local culture.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's fantastic. And I've been really inspired to see how many people have wanted to be involved as well.
Alongside the scientific research, there's going to be extensive construction work carried out over the next few years. Through the construction of fish passes on the River Severn and modification of 2 smaller weirs on the Team, the hope is that the historic migration route of the shad will be reinstated, boosting population numbers and helping to restore the river for both wildlife and for people. I'm heading to Diglis Weir, where one of the largest fish passes will be built over the coming year, to meet Jason Leach, who will be overseeing the works as they take place.
So here we are at Diglis. So just over the other side of the weir is where we're going to be putting the first fish pass.
Now, to explain what the fish pass is, what does that mean?
So we kind of see them as a ladder to allow the fish to get from the lower area up to the top of the weir. At the moment, they can't make it up that slope, so what we're doing is putting steps in to make it easier for them to get over. So whatever the flow, whatever the weather, they'll be able to make it over.
And the whole idea is to unlock the upper reaches of the river, which essentially have been off limits to the shad for almost 200 years now.
That's right, and they're really courageous. Every year they come here, a very small population, but can't get anywhere else. So what we're doing is unlocking the Severn to allow them to get to their historic spawning grounds and hopefully recover their population to what it used to be before these things were built.
So that's one phase, but what other phases to the engine? Because there's an awful lot of engineering going on around.
Well, this is just one of the 4 sites we're doing. So we're going to be working at 2 sites in parallel up at Beverley, about 5 or 6 miles upstream. And then next year we've got 2 more at Holt and Lincoln, and that really then cements the civil engineering works. And I think over the years people have become disconnected from the river, actually using the shad, and then what an amazing story it is about getting them back in here, to re-engage them. At this site we're having effectively a big underwater aquarium where every May and June we'll open it to the public, and hopefully people will flock to see this rare fish. Yeah, and now more than ever it's important for the recovery of the species and for us as a species coming out and enjoying it.
Over the coming months and years, the organisations and the volunteers involved in the Unlocking the Severn project are going to be working tirelessly to achieve its goals. This critical work depends wholly on the time and effort of the people involved, and it provides such an important boost for a really important ecosystem. And I can't wait to come back in a year's time to see how they've got on.
As construction got underway, a number of challenges were thrown at the project. Record-breaking rainfall caused months of flooding on the river, stalling construction. But despite this, and then a global pandemic, they forged on, and just 12 months later than planned, I'm heading back to see the results.
It's been 2 years since I've been here, since I walked along this towpath, so I can't wait to see what progress has been made.
So this is it.
Wow.
This is the first of the fish passes we've built at Diglis.
You can see it's this monumental feat of civil engineering. I had visions of this sort of tiny little concrete stepladder, essentially, and I'm looking at this Brunellian massive engineering project. This is a substantial bit of work, isn't it?
It is really massive. I mean, this is the biggest of the 4 we've built. It's the biggest deep vertical slot in England and Wales, 100 metres long, 8 metres wide, 8 metres deep, and it's taken us 18 months to build. Yeah, it's a pretty epic challenge.
Yeah.
I think it exceeds people's expectations,
yes.
without shadow of a doubt. Well, this is only 1 of 4 we're constructing. We've got another 3 upstream. We've also delivered 2 partial weir removals on the River Team, and we've had over 6,000 volunteer hours. So it's a huge effort by our supporters, and we've had about 2,500 children engaged. There is something really exciting I really want to show you though.
Okay.
Downstairs into the gallery.
I'm in your capable hands. Feels like a James Bond lair.
Villain lair, yeah.
Yes, exactly. Look at that. Worth the wait.
2 years in the making.
Yes, and this is the end result. It's funny. It's a lens into the river, isn't it? To a degree, this is almost the end point, isn't it? This is it's a scientific tool, but also it's an engagement tool with the public, and they can actually see what's passing through the fish ladder, basically.
Absolutely, every single fish at the moment has to come past this window, so we get to film it and we get to watch them. That moment of wonder for visitors, for young people, children, I think it's going to be an amazing thing to reach. It's the only one in England and Wales that you can view a river, you can see wild fish and have an appreciation of the environment.
Yeah. So were you clustered around the window after it was built?
It was a very tense couple of days. When we got the water in, we'd done a bit of testing, and then there it was, a little dace, I think was the first one to come through. And then hours and days later, we had an array of fish through. But it was amazing. It exceeded expectations.
This has been a real community effort and a team effort. And in terms of the volunteers who've been involved, they must feel like massive pride.
Huge. We're inviting them in here to have a look at their hard work and see some fish. It's been amazing, and it's a great little thank you for all their support.
Yeah. The pivotal moment is a shad going through, isn't it? Can you remember that moment?
The 9th of May is the first one we saw on a recording. It was an amazing moment. Charles, our scientist, got a call from the PhD student. I've had a ping from one of the shad in the fish pass, 1:15 on the 9th of May. So Charles got straight onto the computer, looked at that time frame, and there it was, a shad go through. And we're going to be doing this for years to come to monitor that hopeful steady increase in the population over the next 5-10 years, and we're there for a long time. And now we can sit back and watch, we can engage, we can have a look, and hopefully, see these fish return year and year after year.
Over the coming years, we're hoping to see population numbers of the shad continue to increase, and that can only have a positive impact on the River Severn ecosystem as a whole.
As the final fish pass is completed, the project will have unlocked 158 miles of habitat, offering easy passage upriver, and not just for the shad, but all fish on the river, including other endangered species, such as salmon, eel and lamprey. This project demonstrates how we can harness new scientific insights and modern engineering to help us live in better balance with nature.
And that represents a really exciting model for the future.